is now my pleasure to invite Ms. Jessica Pearce Rotondi, board member and chair of Legacies Library, Legacies of War, a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing attention to unexploded ordnances, awareness, education, and removal in Laos. Ms. Rotondi is the author of What We Inherit, a personal journey that took her to Lao People's Democratic Republic and the Legacies of War. Please.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It is such an honor to be in this room with so many people who have done so much on this cause, and thank you all for being here today. As he said, my name is Jessica Pearce Rotondi. I am a journalist, a trustee and chair of Legacies Library at Legacies of War, and the author of What We Inherit, A Secret War and a Family's Search for Answers. And I'm standing here before you today because my family was directly involved in the bombing of Laos. On March 29th, 1972, my Uncle Jack was on a U.S. Air Force bombing mission over Laos when his plane was shot down by a Russian surface-to-air missile. He was missing in action for 36 years. I didn't learn about my missing uncle in school or the CIA-led secret war that he fought in. Instead, I found out about it when I was 23 years old and kneeling on the floor of my dead mother's closet looking for something to bury her in. What I found instead were hundreds and hundreds of pages of declassified CIA documents documenting my family's 4-decade search to understand what the US was doing in Laos. Those papers led me across Southeast Asia. In Laos, I stood before craters in people's front yards, schoolyards, and farms. My family could hide their grief in a closet, but in Laos, loss is imprinted on the land. The US bombings left Laos the most heavily bombed country per capita in the entire world. We dropped over 2.5 million tons of ordnance on Laos. That's the equivalent of a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. Only 1% of the contaminated land has been cleared since the last bomb was dropped 50 years ago. People today are still dying from unexploded bombs dropped before they were born. Richard, what you said about future generations resonated so deeply on this topic. And those same indiscriminate weapons are being used to bomb the citizens of Ukraine today. Over 90% of victims from cluster bombs are civilians. I can't change the role my family played in the bombings, but what I can do is make sure no more families suffer because of enforced silence about our past. At Legacies of War, we educate the public about the American secret war in Laos through programs like Legacies Library, a collection of books, films, and resources on the secret war. And it's truly a special thing. We have veterans, survivors, and descendants of both sitting across a table talking about this issue across the aisle. It's a really, really special group. I invite you to check it out. But even more importantly than that, we advocate for funds to remove the bombs. To date, we've advocated for nearly $300 million to clear the UXO from Laos. But Excellencies, the US cannot do this alone. I ask you to not forget countries like Laos that are still facing the deadly impact of a 5-decade-old war. Your investment can assist heroic demining efforts, ensuring that we find and destroy these bombs before a child does. As many of you can probably tell, I'm not standing alone up here today. I have a 2-year-old son at home, and this June, I'll be bringing another son into this world. What I want my boys to know is something my family spent generations trying to understand. You cannot allow secrets or shame about the past to prevent you from doing the right thing in the present. As an American, I'm proud that the US is the largest funder of global demining efforts. But I also know that cleaning up is simply not enough. We need to take bold action and ban landmines and cluster bombs from our arsenal to prevent future atrocities. I stand before you today as a mother, a daughter, and a citizen calling upon her country to accede to the Mine Ban Treaty and Convention on Cluster Munitions. Our children are watching. Thank you.